The summer was winding down, and Jason and I were the only two players heading out on a wet Sunday morning. I was quite excited as I'd recently installed some Bitubo cartridges and heavy-duty springs in my front forks. I'd been on one short ride previous, but this was going to be a real test of that new setup. Well, within a few minutes of being on the trail, I heard this clanking noise, and after a quick check, it looks like one of the cartridges had failed. A little research on the internet once I got home showed that this wasn't actually a very rare occurrence. So I left Jason to continue on alone and rode home in a downpour which pretty much matched my mood at this point. The following Sunday, Jason and I headed back to an area we'd been to several times before, and out of the corner of our eye we spotted this kind of motocross track area that someone had built. And there was no signs posted, so I decided to do a few laps. And I started off pretty conservatively. And then as I got a little more confident, I started to get a little bit of air off some of the easier jumps. Now, if something is really going to point out the shortcomings of a big, heavy dual sport bike, taking it out on a track like this is really going to bring up those shortcomings. So after a few laps, Jason decided he was going to pull out his Nikon and take some action shots of me. Decided to try to land a little flatter this time. And on the last one, I did a little better. Then I thought it would be nice to get a few shots of Jason, so I pulled over to park to grab the camera from Jason, and that's when something very strange happened. Now, I don't have any footage of what happened, so I'm just going to play some random shots I kind of found. But this very angry man wearing a housecoat with a cigarette dangling from his lip appeared on a tiny child's four-wheeler and basically started berating us by telling us that he had built this motocross track and all of his neighbors hated his guts because of all the noise problems, and that us being there at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, riding around was going to make his neighbors hate him even more. So we took that as a cue that it was probably time to go. So we packed up and headed back to the main road. Now, we're very good about trying to observe signage, and if something's posted, no trespassing, we won't go there. But it seemed kind of odd that this guy had built this place and there was no signs anywhere saying not to use it. Anyways, once we got back on the road, we decided to continue kind of farther north. And as usual, we were scanning left and right when we saw this interesting ATV trail on the left-hand side of the road. And of course, we're driving on grass, which is never a good sign, when up ahead, the spider sense was tingling a little bit here. So we decided it might be worth jumping off and taking a little look. And sure enough, once we could get up there and see down into this little dip, it was a real swamp. And neither Jason or I really felt like dragging bikes through a swamp when there was this perfectly good road to ride on. And we didn't actually go much farther along when there looked like a really nice trail off to the right. So we scooched off on this little side road, and that led us onto this entrance to the ATV trail. Some of these trails are posted no motorcycles. This one actually said no snowmobiles, so off we went. Now, it started off with a couple of good climbs. Once again, the hills never look that steep on the old GoPro. But this was a decent climb, and then we came to this really rocky section where they'd actually built the entire trail out of this kind of big crushed rock. Now, I had taken out the Bitubo cartridges that failed the weekend before, but I kept the heavier springs. And the front suspension actually was working quite well. And then the trail opened up into the typical groomed kind of ATV trail. But there was a few good climbs. This was actually quite a nice little rocky climb. But there was enough, there were enough spots where you could kind of pick and choose your route without driving over all the rocks. There were a few little bridges to get across. And then of course if you go up, you've got to come down. And the ATV guys do tend to churn up a lot of the rocks on these steep hills. So I could see Jason up ahead bouncing down the trail. Decided to give myself a little space. I didn't want to run into him. And then as you can see, there's some runoff area here at the bottom, so I'm not really that worried if I gather a bit of speed because I know I have a runoff area here. I watched Jason kind of wade through this, and I really didn't feel like getting my feet wet, so I thought I could maybe sneak by on the right and stay a little drier if I drove over all these rocks. And didn't quite have enough speed and ended up stalling it here. This was turning out to actually be quite a nice find, this trail. Now this looks like a very gnarly uphill, but one of the beauties of a motorcycle as compared to an ATV is you don't need a very wide trail to find a smooth route up. So we were able to kind of pick and choose our way up there and avoid most of the nasty bits. And this was followed once again by a downhill. Here you see us going over a big rock. When we first started riding, we used to really try to avoid those rocks. Now we actually tend to choose that as the preferred route. And we don't meet a lot of people on the trail early in the morning. Here we pass a couple of side-by-sides, so we try to slow down, give them a wave. They are the guys who tend to keep most of these trails open and build the bridges and cut down the fallen trees and maintain these little bridges like this. So we try to give them their due. Now this kind of led us back to another area where there was a sand pit we'd been to a few times. So the old 800 can climb these hills pretty good. Get it into second gear and let her rip. Once again, Jason was going to pull out the Nikon and get a few action shots. So I decided to give it a little more jam this time. Even got a little air on the front tire on that one. Now there's a whole big trail network that shoots off the back of this sand pit too. So it's kind of a nice starting off point. Then Jason gave me the Nikon and I managed to take a few bad pictures of him, including this one where even though it's out of focus, you can kind of get the gist of what's going on. If you want to keep up to date on the new Awesome Players videos that are coming out, hit the subscribe button. Hit like if you like the video to let us know. You can also join us over on Facebook and at our website, and the information for those is in the description below. And I guess this ends another very small Awesome Players off-road motorcycle adventure.